Good morning, Flosstube. It is Helen D. on a dreary, dark day. It's been kind of rainy and dark for a few days now. So thanks for joining me today. We're going to do something a little different. I thought it might be helpful to do a video specifically where I talk about some cross-stitch tools and kind of things that I use that I get a lot of questions on. So I figure if one or two people have a question, more people have the same question, right? That's what I always tell my son. Don't be afraid to ask a question because you're not the only one who has it. So I always also get a lot of questions this time of year because some people will say, oh, can you tell me where you found this? I wanted to put that on my Christmas list, or I wanted to get that for a friend, or I wanted to see if I could find it on a Black Friday sale. So I thought this would be a good time to kind of go over some stuff. So I tried to break it down. I have equipment, more like stitching tools, and then just random stitchy stuff. So we're gonna start, I will put links in the description box. If it's a certain thing and it has a link, I will put that below. I will put like written out what it is, if there's a certain name. But remember to always like do your own searching, you might find a better price. So that's all I can say about that. And if I've shown something in a separate video, I will link that below too. Like the thing we're going to start with, because it's big and bulky. This is the stand that I purchased this year. This is a Nerge stand, and it's the kind that you can put a Q-snap in. I did a whole video just on this, showing how my dad modified it to kind of fit what I was looking for. There's a whole bunch of different stands out there. So if you're interested in a stand, definitely do your own research, because some people might want one of these that kind of goes, you kind of sit on it, put your legs over the side. Some people like a Lowry stand or a different kind of stand-up stand. So there's all kinds of videos and things that you can find more information. That one worked for me because I sit in a recliner and I needed something. The Lowry wasn't working. I have a Lowry, I don't use it, but this one worked for me. So that's number one. Other bulky stuff. And this, honestly, I bet doesn't have to be this bulky. This is something I take to retreats, and it is a power tower, right? It's like a power strip, but it's vertical, and it has for phones and stuff. I know that they make these smaller now. I've had this for quite a few years. I might invest in a smaller one because this takes up a lot of space in my bag. But that's handy to have. If the table has electricity, you can plug that in the center, and then everyone can use it to charge whatever they need. On the same front, something else I don't have but is on my list is a phone charging block. So it's just, if your phone runs low and you don't have electricity at your table, you can plug it in here and it's like a backup kind of battery charger. They're super common. I just don't have one. So that would be another, it's like a portable charger or a power bank for your phone. Another thing that I got a ton of questions on last time I showed it was the neck light that I use. This is something I use at retreats or when the power goes out. If we're having a big storm, I plug this in, charge it up, because you never know. So this is one of the lights that goes over your neck. But the reason that I like this one is because it has your just single directional, but then this one angles. So it's a little easier to get it right where I need it on my stitching without blinding the rest of my family. So this just goes around your neck. Right? You can angle this to be wherever you need it, you know, to get a good light. Now, they sell this single. This particular one, I will put a link to this particular one. They sell it just as the light, and they sell it with a case. At the time I bought mine, I found a much cheaper case. So I just bought my case. I just bought a case separate. When I looked these up, these were now $10, I think. So this one with the case might be the same price. So And that way I can just keep my power cord in there and keep it zipped up. This lives in my retreat bag. I opened my retreat bag to pull some goodies out. Another thing that I get asked about a lot is my tracing pad. So this is what I use when I'm making strawberries or stand-ups or anything that involves a template, or like tracing something onto interfacing. So this is the one I have. So this is just an adjustable tracing light box. And you definitely, when you're searching around, want the word tracing, because there are some, I guess, that are bumpy. So the tracing ones are nice and smooth. Has a power button and some cat hair. This is kind of, you can brighten it or dim it. My only problem is the plug is right here, and on my table, that's the side that my arm is, and I keep hitting it with my arm and shutting it off. So it's really thin. These were fairly inexpensive. I think they're anywhere from like $15 to $20. I've had this multiple years and I use it a ton. I kept mine in the box so it wouldn't break. My son uses it for his homework too. I should have mentioned the stand, last I looked on Amazon, was $60. Check with your LNS if you have an LNS. A lot of them carry Nerge products, so you might be able to find it there. The neck light was around $20. The power tower was anywhere from 10 to 15 to 20, right, depending on what you get. So the power bank I haven't looked up yet. I need to, but I haven't. All right, so that's kind of equipment. So for stitchy tools, one thing I use all the time is the DMC color card. And this is the card with the threads. So it has actual threads on there. It's not just pictures of the colors. I find this super handy for kitting something up. If I don't have the called for color, I can be like, well, how close is it? Like, is it just half a shade off and I have this next one? I'll just use that. Or separating floss for a Mill Hill kit, super helpful. Trying to determine if a fancy floss I want to swap out is close to the called for, super helpful. So these have gotten a little pricier. I know when I got mine several years ago, it was like $25. The cheapest I found this for was $40. That was it. I don't know how many she has, but that was at Sassy Jack's. And then 123 Stitch had them for $44, but I don't know if they were in stock. So this is in here by color. And then in the back, there's a key that tells you, right, what page you need to look at. So if you do a lot of color swaps, this is definitely worth investing in. I use this a ton. All right. Another thing I've gotten multiple questions about, especially lately, is the little frames that I use for Mill Hills and other perforated paper. So I'm talking about these frames here, which are magnetic. So you can put your perforated paper in there. I have one here ready to go for a project. These come in multiple sizes. The tricky part about these is a lot of these originated overseas in Ukraine. So they're measured in centimeters, and that seems to like throw off the measuring. I know when I ordered mine, I had to be like, is that the size I really want? Is it this one? Is it this one? So here's the different sizes. Here's the different sizes that I have that I find the most useful. All right, the small one. This little one is perfect for Mill Hill ornaments that come with the small cut. And this one is, the inside dimension is 9 centimeters by 6.5. So when you're ordering this one, it is 9 centimeters by 6.5. and that's the one for the ornaments. The other most common size is the big one. This one is for Mill Hill buttons and beads, and this one, I believe, is 14 by 14. Yes, the inside dimensions of this one are 14 centimeters by 14 centimeters, which comes out to about 5.5 inches. In the Mill Hills, right, you finish them in a 6-inch frame. So this is the size for the big ones. And then the other size that I have, which I just recently bought, was this little square. And this one is 10 by 10 centimeters. This one I use for Satsuma Street ornaments because they're too big for the small one and too small for the big one. You can just use a bigger piece of perforated paper and use the big one. You can sew. I've mentioned I have a video where I show you how you can sew fabric to the edges to then use a Q-snap or whatever else you'd like to use instead of purchasing one of these. But I thought, you know what? I just would like to have one this size. So when you're ordering these, eBay has a whole bunch. Like I said, there's a whole bunch from overseas. There are some shops in the US that sell them. With tariffs and everything, just keep an eye on where you're ordering from. I will link below where I got mine, which was a US shipper. P&B Making Memories. They're reopening. Their shop is on vacation, but they're reopening mid-November, it says. I wrote it down, 11/21. They are a New England, not a New England, a US Etsy shop that makes their own. So they wouldn't like have this design, but they have different designs on them. Barefoot Needle Art in Myrtle Beach. They make them, they print them on their 3D printer. I don't know if they have all the sizes, but I know they have the bigger ones. So that's someplace you could check out too. And I usually search Mill Hill magnet frame. People have asked if you can stitch with fabric in them. I've never tried. I don't know how tight it would hold it. It would probably depend on how tight you like your fabric, right? I like mine super tight. Some people like it really soft. My sister, I say you like yours floppy. So it's personal preference. So that goes right into, I gotta put this back in my bag or it's with this project. Oops, I didn't bring one down. Hoops, Q-snaps. I meant to grab a Q-snap. I'm sure most of you know what a Q-snap looks like. So I prefer Q-snaps. When I first got back into stitching, you know, I stitched forever before Q-snaps were even around. And when I picked it back up, like as much as I do now, I was using the spring-loaded hoops, which worked great. They kept my fabric nice and tight. They left a ton of hoop marks that I found super hard to iron out. So I switched to a Q-snap, and that's what I prefer. So I put it in my Q-snap, and I know sometimes people ask me, what are those colorful things you have holding your fabric on? They're these little spool huggers. They're meant for sewing thread, right? To put around your spool of thread so that when you have your strand that comes out, it stays in there and doesn't get all over the place. But they work great on the edge of a Q-snap to roll up your extra fabric and then kind of tuck it in there. So they're usually sold in packs, you know, anywhere from a dozen to 50. So get some friends together. These are common to give out as retreat gifts. So if you do have to get a pack of a whole bunch, they're great to give out as retreat gifts. So that's those. Nurge hoops. I do have a few Nurge hoops. When I bought my stand, earlier this year, I hurt my elbow. So I was having trouble holding the Q-snap because it was heavy. That's why I got the stand so that I could keep stitching. I've got to keep stitching. And I also decided to try a Nurge hoop. Ironing out wrinkle-wise, it for me was easier than hoop marks. My problem with the Nurge hoop is I can't get my fabric tight enough. Like I said, fabric tightness is completely personal preference. I like mine super tight. So I just couldn't get them tight enough, but I know a lot of people really enjoy them and they're lightweight, right? They're a plastic frame. You twist this to open it. And the thing that's supposed to make these hold your fabric a little more so than a regular hoop is they have a little ridge. Get out of there. So there's a little ridge here, and then it goes out here, so it really kind of clamps it in there. And I know some people, when they put it on, right, they'll put it on and they'll tighten, and then when they get almost as tight as they want this part to be, they like really pull their fabric in there and tighten it some more. And some people love them. They say, holds my fabric great. Personally, I'd prefer a Q-snap. But here's the sizes I have to show you. So this is a number 1. And this one is, these are sold by inches. Now, I don't know if they're sold by inside dimension or outside dimension, but I'm gonna measure inside. So the opening for that one is 4 1/4 by 3 3/4. That's the small one. A number 2, this was the size I was using the most. So this one I could fit a little over 6 1/4 by 5 3/4. So for me, this one was a good size. The number 3 was great because you could get more project in there, but by getting more project in there, my fabric was even looser. So I didn't use this one as much. But this one is 8 3/4 by 7 3/4 for the big one. I had a number 4, it was so big, I took it to the last retreat and put it on the freebie table. So these are pretty common to find. A lot of stores have them, online has them. So if you're looking for a Nerge, they're pretty easy to find. They are made to go in the stands. Like I said, this particular one you can use for a Q-snap, although my dad did make the screws bigger. Or they have a stand specifically for the Nerges that has a smaller little grippy thing. I've had some questions about Morgan hoops. I've never tried them for cross stitch. I know Morgan hoops are used for punch needle, and they have the same kind of ridge that holds your fabric tight. I've never tried them. I know my friend Brandy of B&E Stitchery swears by them. That's her favorite thing to use. So sometimes you have to kind of try different ones before you know which one's gonna work for you. So that is that stuff. And then for just kind of stitchy stuff, one thing I use all the time in my finishing that I'm always talking about is my bodkin. I thought I lost it a while ago and I had to order a new one because I have to have it. Then I found it. So this one didn't even get taken out of the package. So it is a ballpoint bodkin. So it has the ball, and then this is the magic end. So this, I know you can't see, but is very flat. These are made for like pulling elastic through, right? You make a spot for elastic and you pull it through. I use this little flat side for stuffing, especially when I'm doing a stand-up or a drum or something that has a base sewn on. Once you get the base like 3/4 of the way on, you realize it's kind of, there's not enough stuffing at the bottom, because when you were stuffing it, you couldn't get all those little corners because you had the base to put on. So once I have the base kind of 3/4 on, I use this to jam some stuffing right around that base to kind of fluff it up. So very inexpensive. One of my most used things. All right, stitchy journals. There's all kinds. There's book of days. There's all kinds of journals. Some people sticker them up. Some people barely write in them. I'm in the barely write in. The one that I used this year was the Cross Stitchers Planner. And this is from Lori of My Crazy Life. So different planners have different things. A lot of them have Depends on how much you want to use them, right? This is a big thick one, and it had all the months with some extra stuff, and extra spot in the back for retreat information and all kinds of extra subscriptions and clubs and whatever you want to use. So I really just used the calendar page and the back page. And you can see, here's January. I was being real good. I was keeping track of what I worked on and what I started. I color coded. Let's go to October. So I gave up on this. I'm still keeping track of, you know, what I've started, what I've finished, which was only one thing this month, when my retreats are. So that's kind of what I used it for. And then in the back, and I had to put little tabs to make it easier for myself, I did use, there was just some blank pages for your WIPs, new starts, and plans. So in here, I went through and you know, I wrote my WIP, and then who the designer was, when I started it, and when I finished it. There's some blanks. And then when I finished it, I would highlight it. Yes, we did go to a second page this year. So all kinds of planners. LNSs have them. Online you can find them. Etsy has a bunch. There's some that are printable if you rather just buy a printable one and print it out yourself. So if you search cross-stitch planner, you will find a whole bunch. For next year, for me, I just bought a simple monthly calendar with some extra pages in the back, because that's all I used it for. So it'll be easy peasy. We'll see if I even keep up with it. Another kind of good gift or thing to think about this time of year is books. Every year there seem to be a lot of cross-stitch books put out with different patterns in them. So the 3 I grabbed are all ones that came, no, 2 of them came out this year. One of them is just one of my favorites that you hear me talk about all the time. I have done flip-throughs of all 3 of these. So I will link those below if you want to see specifically what's in them. There goes Pepper. She doesn't move as fast as Emmy. So the Witchy Stitcher put out Witchy Stitching. So this one is available. This is all Halloween. And this one also just has some really great stitching information. All kinds of really detailed information in that one. Emma Congdon of Stitcherovia put out Merry Stitchmas. So this one is really cute. I've seen a few people starting things from this for the holiday. And then my favorite is Cross Stitch in the Forest. This is Max Pigeon of Pigeon Coop Designs. This came out in 2024. I adore this book. He's putting out a new one next year, he said, in 2026. So I've already stitched 3 or 4 things out of here. There's 25 things. I could stitch 15 more things. So I'll link that below too. So those are kind of some different things to think of, right? You might find bookstores might have some sales, or if you want to throw it on a Christmas list, that kind of thing. Other things, if you're thinking about what would be a good gift for someone, or what would be a good gift to ask for, anytime you can get a gift card to your local store or an online store, bonus. There's a whole bunch of different clubs, right? If you're into it, there's a club for it. There's cross-stitch boxes that have a whole mix of things. There's just fabric. There's just floss, right? There's all kinds of things. There's buttons. I am in this year the Just Another Button Club folk floral buttons, and I just got my autumn tin. So this is a quarterly, and the reason I got this one is it had these flower buttons that you sew them on specifically so you see the floss that you're sewing it on with, so it looks like the inside of a flower. This one, like I said, was a monthly. I have one more, and then I don't know if they're continuing it next year, but I will stop mine because I'll have had a little package for all the seasons. So that's just kind of some of the things I thought we would go over and talk about. Like I said, I will list any links that I can, any information if it's something I don't have, like a certain link. If you like, the light box I have is no longer available, but there's similar light boxes. Yeah, so I hope that was helpful just to kind of go over some things. Like I said, if some people have questions, other people have the same questions. So until next week, you guys, bye.